Hi everybody, welcome again to another program of Yeshiva Classroom, and we're here at this time every week, God willing. And we were down here in sunny Florida for a couple of weeks, and I wanted to tell you about a few things, but one thing, I took sick with a head cold, and I went to a physician, and the physician, before I saw the physician, which I never did see, but I saw the physician assistant, and she was very helpful. Bottom line, that she diagnosed as a head cold because the mucus was clear, and as a result she prescribed Claritin and a nasal spray, Claritin nasal spray, whatever. But the point I want to bring out is that we spoke a little bit, and she told me that she was observant, and we got to speaking, and there was a terrible tragedy in Florida, southern Florida, Miami, just a few weeks earlier. By the way, this is being recorded on November the 15th, excuse me, it's January the 15th, 2019, on their calendar. But, you know, I wanted to show you something, and I don't have what that message was. I wanted to hold up. But basically, it's to do with Rabbi Millers, and I wanted to address a message to him, but first I wanted to, let me hold this up and maybe this will get some attention here. But bottom line is, Rabbi Millers from the Young Israel, I want to address a question to him, but firstly I wanted to speak a little bit about the physician assistant who was very upset in that where was God, why did God let this happen regarding the terrible tragedy of this young yeshiva boy who fell from the 10th floor trying to get to his apartment on the 9th floor. He fell from the outside balcony. And I explained that one explanation might be in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 8. And over there it says the faller, you should put a parapet, you should put a railing around your roof so that to prevent, as a safety precaution, to prevent the faller from falling. And it shouldn't be in your responsibility because you had put a railing to as a safety guard. And you know, we might apply it to our own lives, in that we see that safety is very important. I mean, we can't have a person light candles, for instance, in front of drapes, and then leave the room, and before you know it, the drapes could catch on fire, and the house could burn down. So that's a safety warning in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 8, that we should have a safety net before we do anything. We can't leave a child in a room with an open window or a seat belt unbuckled when driving, car seat. Well, you say, you know, I never had an accident, and, you know, probably won't have, but that one time you don't put the buckle up, there could be an accident. And you could be harmed by not carrying out the directive and the Torah to have a safety net on anything you do. And as a matter of fact, this physician's assistant explained to me that the boy had done this previously, climbing down from the 10th floor to the 9th floor because he had forgotten his key. Okay, so a safety is a very important factor, and you know, God it can't help you if you don't follow the rules of safety. I mean, a person who commits suicide, he's being punished because he's taking his own life. And that's a very important concept. Life is very important. So suicide is allowed to take place. And the same thing, that we must learn from these past experiences, that the safety valves must be in place before we try anything. Now, you know, I wrote about Rabbi Millers, and basically I had spoken to him. I'm not a member of the Young Israel of Woodmere, but I often daven there in the Shacharis Minyan in the morning. They have several minyanim, several times daily in the morning, whether it's 6:37, 7:38, 8:39, 9:15. All kinds of smaller and larger groups of people meeting there to pray during the morning service. And I had suggested, you know, it's very difficult to speak to Rabbi Millers because in his busy schedule he has some little time to speak to anybody, but I suggested to him, you know, the people, many in the Young Israel, and in that matter, all Orthodox synagogues have a great percentage of people who are not learned, never went to a meaningful yeshiva, and never appreciated the importance of learning Torah and Talmud. And that's what I suggested, is that we should try to make people 20 seconds to review in each morning service, the fact that they should try at least to spend 20 minutes during the day on some kind of learning that they can do on their own. And depending what kind of level and what appreciation you might be, and I'm sure many of the congregants have time in the amount of 20 minutes during the day on their way to work, or kind of break you have. Do learn, whether it's a daf yomi and picking up a Talmud, or ideology, or whatever, but it's important to for the individual to do work on his own, because as it stands now, it's primarily the rabbi and the adult education teacher who does all the preparation, and he's the one that's speaking. Now it shouldn't be that way, because there has to be a conduit where the student must work and derive benefit from the work he puts into it. You know, it's a time consuming action, a time consuming study action, a time consuming study. It's very time consuming to look into a book, and especially you may not appreciate the fact that it has to deal with things that may not be applicable, so to speak. So, you know, if you don't realize the importance of the beauty of studying, I suggest that, first of all, speak to a rabbi and pick up some kind of an English, Hebrew, sefer, a book, so that you can you can actually do work, right? It's time-consuming study and meticulous preparation, of doing the act that is required of you as we learn out of all the commandments and directives that we have been given. Right? So, do the commandments and you shall be holy. That's what the sentence in the Jewish Bible says. Do the commandments and you shall be holy. That's in Numbers chapter 15, 40. Chapter 15, verse 40. Do the commandments and you shall be holy. What is holy? Means perfection in emulating God's thoughts, actions through the events that we learn in the Torah. Through the events that we learn in the Torah. And a person who is holy and does the commandments actually generates a physical change in that person. A holy person has a physical change by learning the commandments and doing the commandments. He is actually a physical, there's an actual physical change that takes place in him. I mean, it's more like for an example, a pail of water. You don't know if it's hot or cold until you touch it, or a live wire. You don't know if it's live by just looking at it. And that's how it is with a person who is holy, who does the commandments. There's actually physical change. And it's something that we are commanded to do as observant Jews, as followers and believers of the Torah of Judaism. Now, you know, this picture that I just had in my file was the picture of when the Warsaw Ghetto was finally liquidated, and these are the remnants of the Jewish fighters who were later executed, who were brought out in the final hours of the final liquidation before it was burnt, and their memory should be for a blessing. Their memory should be for a blessing. So that's one thing that we wanted to do, and you know, we speak. You know, we finished up the part of the importance of study and that ramifications that it has on our being. So it's something that we should always try to involve ourselves in, and hopefully we can involve the synagogues to do the work of energizing the people to learn, and not to just listen to the rabbi. I mean, the rabbi has you captured in Shabbos, because you know, you have to finish the davening and you have to listen to the speech, sermon, as opposed to you, individual, doing the work during that time, doing the work that you have taken upon yourself. Look, I try to do the Daf Yomi, or the 1 page a day Talmud, and I do it in a very hurriedly way, because you know it's very detailed, and it's difficult to get all the points of view, but just a general idea of what's happening. And here, for instance, is the Art Scroll book, a portion that is being studied today, in the Gemara Chulin, which goes into all the parts of the animal to determine if there's any error or puncture that would make the animal non-kosher, not acceptable to be eaten. And it's very liberal. You know, the lungs are especially vulnerable, and it goes into scabs that form on the outside, and whether they were caused by some foreign substance. It talks about the blowing up the lungs to see if there are any punctures, the finding of foreign objects in the lungs or other organs of the animal, so forth and so on, to determine the kashrus of it. It shows pictures in color of the excuse me, of the trachea and the large windpipe, and how it enters the lungs, and all the possible problems that could occur. So here's a picture. Here's a picture of the trachea going into the lungs. There are three lobes on one side and 2 on the other. There's the cap over the esophagus and trachea on eating when it falls into place, and everything is explained. Now, I don't know if someone wants to go into all that detailed information, because you know, practically speaking, it's you know, it's really for butchers and so forth and so on. But it's good to know what is happening. Now, we're speaking on the Bible, and it happens to be that in this portion we are that we weekly, and especially on Shabbos, when the whole portion is read. It speaks about the plagues that Egypt was stricken with, and Moses goes to Pharaoh, the king, and he says to him that we must let the Jewish people go, that they should serve their God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their God, meaning the forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And serving means to not serve God physically, because no one can actually serve God. God has everything. But it means that it's like a father to a son performing the commandments and living according to the directives of the Torah. And that's how one serves God. That's how a Jew serves God. And you say, well, in Exodus chapter 9, verse 16, it says that it says, let my people go, that they should serve me, their God, and also invoke the land, invoke the name of God throughout the world. Invoke the name of God throughout the world. That's in Exodus chapter 9, verse 16. Now, excuse me. This is what one should be doing by learning and acting as an example of God, God's teachings. We are invoking the name of our God throughout the world. All right, Exodus chapter 9, verse 16. That we might invoke the name of God throughout the world. So you should be taking notes on this. Now, it's not like, well, you know, he's giving a speech and then I'll watch for a few minutes and I'll go on to something else. No, that's not right. If I'm speaking and you want to listen as a Jew, you should take notes and check up on these sentences that I'm giving you. Because it's a two-way street. You know, what does it say? That you have to do the work. It's not like, you know, well, time to call out my God and I'll pray to Him and then I'll hang up and come back and do what I want to enjoy. You have to work at whatever it might be, whether it's ideology, and I'm a very strong stickler for ideology, in that it's important that we know the basis for what we do regarding the commandments. It's not like, well, you know, it's good to do this, good to do that, right? But, you know, I gave you an example, Deuteronomy 22 verse 8, right? In Deuteronomy, over there it talks about safety. You should make a parapet, a railing around your roof, where fall is destined to fall, and that teaches about safety devices. Now I gave you 9 verse 16, in Exodus, let my people go, that they may serve me, and they can invoke the name of God throughout the world. Now people say, well, you know, we all believe in one God. Other ideologies, Gentile ideologies, say, well, we all believe in God. And what they're saying is we all believe in the same God, we all believe in one God. But we can't ascribe to that, because Jews believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because God says over there in Exodus 10:15, in Exodus chapter 10, excuse me, that's in Deuteronomy chapter 10:15. Chapter 10, Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 15. Behold, to God is the heavens and all that there is therein, and the earth and all that there is therein. But only in your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, do I love them to choose and their offspring chosen as a treasured people throughout the world, chosen as a treasured people from all the nations of the world, as of this day. As of this day, the day that I am saying it and the day that you're hearing it, He has chosen the Jewish people to be a surrogate, so to speak, excuse me, of the theories, teachings, and thoughts as expressed in the events of the Torah, as expressed in the events of the Bible. So we are carrying this out, and there are many organizations. Need I not mention Chabad, which is in over 72 countries. In every state of the Union, there's a Chabad welcoming house, willing and wanting to help you in your growth and practice of Judaism. And it's not like, you know, well, let's make it a little easier for you. Let's make another version of this Masorah, this tradition that we got handed down to us from Sinai, from when our forefathers stood in front of Mount Sinai and saw all of this happening, saw the Mount Sinai burning in fire, and lightning, and sound of the shofar throughout, and the ambiance was unreal, and to hear the first words uttered to those approximately 3 million